As you can see, the weather has forced us inside here for our final Breeders' Cup clock report from Churchill Downs. And on a normal occasion, the weather would be the main story here today. But even Mother Nature was trumped by the O'Brien 16, the brigade of Aidan O'Brien horses who went out to the track for the first time today after getting out of quarantine. And what a spectacle it was for all of us out there just to see the precision of the way they train over there in Europe, or at least in the O'Brien stable. 16 horses, not all of them running in the Breeders' Cup, but most of them who we will see here this weekend in a perfect line. Just they spent about a half hour on the racetrack, jogged about 1.25 miles to the finish line, and then turned around and then galloped or cantered maybe another 1.25 miles, 1 3/8 before returning to the barn. Like I said, they're out there about a half hour altogether. And conspicuous by his presence near the front of the pack was the classic-bound Mendelssohn. He was behind only his traveling partner Seahenge, who was not running here. He led the group, but Aidan O'Brien out there on the pony, and even a lot of local horsemen stopped and looked at awe at this training routine, which is kind of strange here on this side of the Atlantic. But it was quite a show for all of us out there today. Because of the weather, the racetrack is sloppy. The turf course, surprisingly, was open this morning for training, with the dogs moved well outside, and it is in a pretty boggy condition, and that's going to be a big story here this weekend. The main course might dry out by Saturday, even Friday with a little luck with the weather, but that turf course is going to stay on the way south of firm or good. It's a soft, yielding, boggy, whatever you want to call it, but could have a major effect on the outcome of those grass races here during the Breeders' Cup weekend. And the star of the show on the turf again this morning, of course, was Enable. There were rumors she was going to blow out today, but she actually stretched her legs pretty good yesterday, so she just kind of had an easy gallop once around, looking great again with those ears pricked up there, looking just like she's as happy as can be and ready for another big effort as the favorite in the turf. A lot of routines, training routines, were cut back this morning because of the condition of the track. Catholic Boy, for instance, going out at 7:30, just simply jogged once around the wrong way, and there were many others that followed suit. Although there were several horses that were showed pretty high energy levels in their gallops this morning over the wet track. Monomoy Girl continues to tug her rider around there. That's kind of a routine for her. She's always wanting to do more in the morning, and she looks good coming out of her work here last weekend. Also, Channel Maker, I thought looked particularly good this morning, and his nemesis, Glorious Empire, was really pulling his rider around. A turf specialist, but he looked pretty happy just galloping very strongly over the main track today. I thought Talismanic looked good again today, coming off a kind of a subpar effort, I guess you'd call it, in the Arc. But the Breeders' Cup, returning here to the Breeders' Cup to defend his title in the turf, I think has been the main goal all along, and I expect him to run a much improved race coming out of the Arc. I don't know if he can beat Enable, but he sure looked good out there again today. I thought his best day was yesterday when he got to kind of open gallop through the stretch, but he's easy to spot out there, as we've mentioned, some pretty unique markings, and he's been looking good out there on a regular basis. The only horse that really, there was no recorded works today under the conditions, but Princess Yaiza, I don't know how you pronounce this, kind of got to breeze down the lane 1/4 mile around the very wide dogs in 27 seconds. Thunder Snow and Arthur Kitt, both of whom worked a half mile yesterday, were back out on the track today on the main track, galloping this morning. So obviously none the worse the wear from their works yesterday. And I want to mention Abel Tasman. Now, Abel Tasman, one of the biggest question marks coming into this year's Breeders' Cup, coming off a very poor effort last time out in the Zenyatta following that gut-wrenching victory at Saratoga over a late in the personal ensign. Whether she's going to bounce back with a big effort or not, I'm not sure, but she's been galloping in the morning with blinkers on, which I guess is not routine for her. Now, she dropped well back early on in the Zenyatta. I don't think Bob Baffert was happy about that. I don't know if putting the blinkers on in the morning is any indication, but I expect to see her show a lot more speed coming out of the gate from her inside post in the in the distaff. She's been, calm in the morning. I mean, the blinkers hasn't changed her galloping routine, but she has had the blinkers on. You don't see a lot of horses galloping out here in the morning, just during their gallops with blinkers on. Well, that's it. We've been here for the last 10 days. All the major work is done. We will have all the full reports on the workouts we've seen and some of the gallops and other stuff in our DRF clock report. The Friday one is now available. The Saturday one will be posted sometime late Thursday or early Friday morning. I hope you enjoyed what we've done out here. Another big shout out to Barbara Livingston, my camera person and producer here for these daily reports. And remember, though, even though the video coverage is, our video coverage is over, there's lots more coverage to come here from our DRF team for the best coverage of Breeders' Cup 2018. Just stay right there on DRF.com.